In this video we are going to demonstrate how to change the total station setup type in the office. If you look at the imported files, you can see that we have imported a job file from Trimble Access. Expanded that job file node, you can get a better understanding of the chronological order of measurements as they have been done in the field. You can see that the total station was positioned on the point 1 and then a single backside measurement has performed to point 2, and here you can see all the measurements that have been done from point 1. Another way to get yourself more familiar with the sequence of field measurements is loading the total station editor and selecting your job file and then expanding the nodes for station setup and for the observations. So you can here see total station coordinates, backside coordinates, and then all the measurements that have been made. Point 2 was a backside and therefore has a different icon, and then phase 1 measurements to point 103 to point 1003. If you look at the properties of the single backside, you can see here the station setup type single backside, and one thing that is new in TBC version 360 is the fact that by expanding this drop-down list, you can now change that station setup type to anything else. So let's say we set up the total station on point 1 and measured a backside to point 2 just to get something going. We could keyed in a fake azimuth, or we just needed something quick and dirty to initialize our field measurement. Then throughout the day, let's say we measured some points and we didn't actually find out the published coordinates for those points until we came later on in the office. And now we want to use those points to resect the position of total station setup for the point 1 here. By expanding the points 103, 104, you can see that the coordinates or the position for those points here was obtained as a forward measurement from the station setup 1. So the first thing is to do is to key in grid coordinates for that point. The way to do that is if you select the point 103 in the Project Explorer, you can then go here and say add coordinate. In this case, we don't actually have a published coordinate for point 103, but we can just for the purpose of this exercise say, let's say from some spec sheet or from the uh, government agency's website, I understand this point is 0.08 and this point here is 0.97, and the elevation for this point was 500.82, and I will now change these points to be the control quality. Hit OK, and notice now if you expand the node under point 103, a new coordinate called office entered grid coordinate. We will do the same thing for the point 104, and let's modify the coordinates just a little bit. So here we can delete the last decimal, here we can add 7, and this one we can leave as is, and change the quality to control quality and hit OK. Notice now the point 104 is going to have an office center grid coordinate. So for the purpose of standard resection, we can keep adding more points. So the more points we are resecting from, accuracy is going to be better. So we can choose also this point here, 1003. Let's add a coordinate there. Modify just a little bit. So imagine these values again are coming from some published coordinate spreadsheet, and we'll change these to control quality and say OK. So now we have actually the coordinates that we need to resect from. One thing that we need to do is for the total station observations that were made from station setup 1 to those points, we need to change the target information, and you can see here the field is called backside. Currently this observation is not used as a backside, so we need to change that field to yes, and we will do the same thing for points 103 and the same thing for the point 104. So now these observations are going to be considered backside. Notice there's ability to recompute something as we are changing the properties of the project, and Still, some things to change is, in this case, we want to actually disable the point 1, because we want to override these grid coordinates that were keyed in the field. We can make them enabled as checked, or in this case, I'm just going to make them disabled. So you notice that things disappeared in the screen, so don't be worried about that. That's just because we disabled the station setup coordinate, and TBC is computing things in real time. So one more thing to change before I can recompute is changing this station setup property from single backside to standard resection. So now you can see, oh, my point 2 is still used in the standard resection, so I'm gonna also disable observation to point 2. Actually, I'm not gonna disable it, but I'm gonna change this observation to point 2 to be to not to be a backside. So if I close that and if I go back to the standard resection here, now you can see station setup standard resection would be the points 103, 104, and 1003. And now you can either hit this red ball here, or you can hit F4, whatever you prefer. And notice now the measurements have came back, and if I look at the properties of point 1, those are not 1000, 1500, but those have been changed based on the resection information from points 1003, 103, and 104. Also, if you look at the standard resection again here, you can see the standard error of a station, which is default errors from the project settings, and then you can see the horizontal and vertical residuals from each of the resected observations. If now you wish to change the station setup maybe from a standard resection to Helmert resection or station setup plus, you have the ability to do so. That concludes our video on changing this total station setup type in the office using TBC version 360.